All right, welcome back. Today I want to talk about how 1984 is happening today in the year 2020. So the first way that 1984 is happening in the year 2020 is Big Brother. You can think of mass surveillance on citizens happening without the need for a warrant. Edward Snowden had showed that a few years back with the capturing of metadata. Over time, only more information will be captured by large corporations and the government. You can also think of Big Brother now also um, being used in your smartphones. You can think of it as the Google Homes, your Alexas. The other way Big Brother is being used is with government officials now requesting you to report your neighbors for not wearing masks or for having gatherings of more than 10 people. In California, they said that they would actually shut off water to residents that had gatherings of more than 10 people. And that is exactly what Big Brother would do. Secondly is doublethink. Doublethink is when you have two opposing ideas at the same time. Think of it as someone saying only the police should have guns, but at the same time they're saying that the police are racist and should be defunded, or that gender is a construct. But also they demand that a certain number of women have board seats set aside for them on corporations. Now at the same time, they also don't mention the 2,000 other genders that they believe exist. A doublethink can also be, when they tell us for our health, we must wear a mask while picking up our double Big Macs while driving by the closed gyms. Doublethink is about hypocrisy, and it's a way for people to try to control others while not obeying their own set of rules. Third is thought crime. Social media companies are removing people for being against what they call the norm. Now, the norm is set by the large cities that are predominantly liberal. They're set by college educated young liberals. And what's dangerous about that is they are setting the norms. If you say a man who becomes a woman is still a man on Twitter, it's considered hate speech and thus a thought crime. Even if you agree that the person should have all the rights and freedoms as they did before or as you have, if you do not follow along with their exact narrow views, it is considered a thought crime. Hate crime is a thought crime, and you can be accused of sharing hateful views even if there's no hate behind it. Next is newspeak. Newspeak is changing definitions of words and how we talk to one another. Over the past few years, Merriam-Webster has been changing definitions of words to better fit what the liberal views are. They are now changing words such as racism, and in the future, I'm sure that they will be changing definitions of what woman means. We can also see, words like Latinx being used and promoted as a new way of talking about Latinos. Even Urban Dictionary has begun removing words and promoting other words based on the context. If you have something that is pro-Trump, it's now being removed or it's being redefined. You can't find the word clown world, and TDS is now, instead of Trump derangement syndrome, is now Trump delusion syndrome, and now a anti-Trump word, even though TDS is pretty much only used by fans of Trump. Memory hole is another category, and we see this with news articles being erased or altered. It becomes harder and harder to look for past articles that go against what the current norm is. It becomes harder and harder to find articles that say, Hillary Clinton wasn't going to win the 2016 election, or that Trump would destroy the economy if he won the presidency in 2016. I've actually seen archiving being called a tool of the right wing. And that's when you take an article and you save it in its present state so that it cannot be altered later. And really, this is being used even on silly things. Several years back, a basketball analyst was caught changing changing his previous year's NBA draft guesses. And he was adding players that weren't there before. He was moving certain players up and down just to make it look like his previous year estimates were better than what they actually were. He actually still works for ESPN to this day. They just said that he was hacked and that nothing happened. 2 plus 2 equals 5 is another one. A couple months back, there was a Twitter thread of all these professors going on and on how 2 plus 2 could equal 5 under certain circumstances, and I think that speaks for itself. The term proles actually comes from 1984. It's actually a Karl Marx term that means working class citizens. The working class citizens of today are kind of looked down upon by the liberal college educated white kids who think they know what's best for them. You can see them how they mock them as deplorables and uneducated, and it's just weird that they claim to be fighting for these people but also look down on these people at the same time. 2 Minutes of Hate has turned into 24/7 hate on news channels. 2 Minutes of Hate, followed by 2 minutes of hate, followed by 2 minutes of hate, followed by 2 minutes of hate. You know, they spin these news articles constantly to make it sound like politicians, you know, left or right, depending on what station you listen to, are taken out of context. Their words are manipulated to make them sound like they are worse than, you know, what you could possibly imagine. You know, Fox did it for Obama, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Post, all these stations and newspapers are doing it for Trump. Next up is telescreen. I think that just goes back to your cell phones, your Alexa, your Google Home. I have a Google account set up for my kid, and he had an iPad, and without me setting up anything, he would get random anti-Trump news reports. Same thing for my work phone that I get. It's iPhone. I get news notifications about certain politicians that I didn't even ask for. And it's always negative if it's for certain ones and always positive if it's for others. So those are just some ways that I think 2020 has really become 1984. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below.